How are we doing? Still hanging in there? I know it's a lot of really complex issues that we're dealing with here today, and it's very worthwhile. I think we all agree with that, but it can take a toll on our abilities to focus and to kind of cognitively process everything that we're talking about. So I just want to thank you for your attention and for giving me this last ounce of energy that you might have before we go into the coffee break. It's really a privilege and an honor for me to be here. The last several speakers spoke quite a bit about the empirical evidence we have around child online safety and related issues. This work that I'm doing, that I'm presenting today, is more theoretical and it's more abstract in nature. So again, I'm going to have to beg your patience and understanding as we kind of wade through together some of these more complex terminologies and ideas. And at the end, I'll try to give you some kind of nugget of practical advice to take forward. So I'm going to be talking quite a bit about universal design, and I'm going to do my best to connect these principles of universal design to show how we can ensure the safety and protection of children navigating digital spaces. Universal design is a really powerful yet kind of crazy idea that we can design technology that everybody can use equally. This is fundamentally what the definition is. It's an idea that's only very recently come into policy, practice, and in research. Back in the 1950s, 1960s, even in the 1970s, the ideas behind universal design would have been considered outlandish, would have been considered radical. This is far-fetched, this is science fiction. But now we have an opportunity here to take this idea of using technology equally and applying it in practice. So I believe that universal design provides a framework and a point of departure for considering child online safety, a framework that's rooted in achieving equality in the information society. So the United Nations defines universal design as the design of technology to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. So that's essentially three components. One, that technology should be usable. Two, that usability should extend to everyone in every possible way. And three, that use cannot require any kind of weird fixes or add-ons or bolt-ons or, oh, now you have to buy this piece of software that costs 1,000 euros. It's a very simple yet uncompromising view on how we create technology. And there are three very interesting words wrapped up in this definition. Get to that in a second. So in 2006, the United Nations put forth a new human rights treaty called the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. It was a very innovative treaty, not only because it was the first time to clearly articulate the rights of persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities, but it was also the first human rights treaty to recognize a right to access the internet. And that's fundamentally where we experience a lot of these child online safety issues. It was also the first human rights treaty to recognize that states, countries such as Poland, have an obligation to undertake or promote research and development of universally designed goods, services, equipment, and facilities. And of course, this includes all aspects of technology. So when we talk about universal design as an approach to ensuring the safety and security of children online, we have to juxtapose the right to access the internet with the rights of children with disabilities and obligations to ensure universally designed technology. Now, I mentioned there's three interesting terms here in the definition of universal design. So let's unpack the first one here, design. The UN chose the word design deliberately, and it chose it in a way that's kind of ambiguous. It's hard to understand whether or not they mean design as a process, as a procedure, by which we create technology, or design as an output, as the way the technology is constructed and way that it is used. If we turn to research in computer science and human-computer interaction, research in disability studies, and science and technology studies, we find evidence that really suggests that design refers to both, that you can't have a universally designed product without ensuring that the process creates something that's universally designed. So in terms of child online safety, we have to consider both the process by which we create new technologies, as well as the functions and features of those technologies, the outputs of the design process. The second kind of provocative word they used is usable. We all kind of have this inherent idea of, oh, it should be usable. We use the term user-friendly a lot, with having no clue what that actually means. Or it should be easy to use, as if that has some kind of better definition. Usability, like design, has been analyzed in a number of different domains related to human factors, physiology, and psychology. There's no single definition of usability. But the one that I like comes from the International Standardization Organization. It's rather parsimonious. It just says that in order for technology to be usable, a user has to be able to effectively, efficiently, and satisfyingly achieve their goals. So can I reach my goal? Can I reach my goal quickly? And can I reach my goal with a smile on my face at the end of the day? So when we talk again about child online safety, we're talking about children being able to use online technologies in a way that's effective, efficient, and satisfying. If a child is using the web to look up information for a report at school or to communicate with friends, can they achieve those goals? Can they achieve those goals in a timely manner? And can they achieve those goals without being harassed, abused, or assaulted? Right? I don't think anyone would think that a satisfying user experience online includes any of those three dimensions. Typically, we try to avoid these things. In the last term, probably the most problematic term in this definition is all people. How do we operationalize everyone? How do we ensure that everyone can use technology? It's very difficult and problematic. One way we can use to kind of operationalize what being human is just age. And we got a lot of that in the research. We had age groups between this and that and this and that and this and that. And that's fine, but there's multiple ways of conceptualizing age. How we think about age changes over time. A 10-year-old today is a very different experience than what a 10-year-old had 2 generations ago, let alone 200 years ago. So that's one way in terms of age. Another way of conceptualizing what it means to be human is in relationship to disability. Now, I come from this radical school of thought that says life is a disabling process. We're all heading in one direction, towards disability and death. I know that's refreshing. But it's important for us to kind of come to terms with that and to understand that we will all experience some form of temporary or permanent disability in our lives. Whether that means going on an international flight and having jet lag and not being able to cognitively process your environment as quickly as you normally would, or whether that means you've broken an arm or a leg and you have to have a cast for several months, or whether that means later in life you acquire dementia, macular degeneration, or any other form of disability. So in order to animate this definition and to provide a further framework, I've been working with human rights lawyers from the Harvard Law School. And we have argued for a set of 4 principles for universal design in the information society. Those principles, which are laid down in an upcoming article in the journal International Human Rights Law Review, include social equality, human diversity, usability and accessibility, and participatory processes. I'm going to go through these each individually give you a better understanding for what that means. So social equality is a very broad concept. It deals with a person's chances for achieving success in life. It is often misunderstood as being about equal opportunity. We've heard this term before, equal opportunity. So scholars have argued that to achieve social equality, all we have to do is avoid discriminating against people. So long as we don't discriminate, then we're good. We've achieved equality, done, check. But there's another group of scholars that come from my point of view, that point out that it's not actually just about direct forms of discrimination. It's more about how we organize society, and that there are systemic biases that disadvantage certain groups of people. And that because of those disadvantages, that person's chances for achieving any sort of success in life are near zero. It's not equality if your chances of success are zero. So when we talk about universal design, we have to consider equality not just from the need to eliminate discrimination, but from the point of view that we need to ensure that everyone has a reasonable chance of achieving success in life. So for example, if I'm deaf or hard of hearing, and I want to watch a movie with my children, but that movie doesn't include captions or subtitles at the bottom of the screen, then I won't be able to enjoy that movie on an equal basis with my children or with someone who doesn't have a hearing impairment. My chances of success at being able to enjoy that movie are zero. So social equality really animates and frames how we adopt universal design in practice. When we consider equality as a point of departure for universal design, then technology developers have the opportunity to ensure that technology is usable for everyone prior to when it's created, prior to when it's developed and put onto market. Now, the second principle of universal design is human diversity. It's really fundamental to the first principle, social equality. It recognizes the immense variety of social, cultural, and physiological characteristics that we have as a species, as a group of beings. Historically, technology developers have been very interested in what they call the average user, or the normal user, or the typical user. And so I would just ask us all here today to reflect on, are you guys average? If you're average, can you just show me a hand? No. None of us are average, right? We all think we are out of the norm. And the US military has even done experiments to try to figure out what the hell an average user really is. In the 1960s, the US Air Force thought, oh, we're going to recreate the cockpit, the seat in an airplane, and we're going to make it perfect for everyone. We're going to one cockpit, everyone's going to use it equally. And of course, they know all their pilots, so they took and they measured arm circumferences and lengths and leg and every other kind of physiological measurement. And they just averaged all those measurements, and they created a cockpit for that average user. And as a result, it worked for no one. Every pilot in the US military said, this does not work for me. There was no average user. It's a myth. But it's a myth that perpetuates for some reason. So we have to consider human diversity when we're talking about things like universal design. We're not talking about creating some kind of one-size-fits-all solution. We're really talking about creating a one-size-fits-one solution. A solution that works for an individual, not for some massive group. It also means that we're trying to create solutions that groups of people who have been historically discriminated against have the opportunity to use fully and effectively. And that means we have to consider some of these barriers that people might experience when they're using technology. Barriers that may result from a person's gender, their color, their race or ethnicity, their sex, language, religion, their political or national or other opinion, their ethnic, indigenous, or social origin, their birth, age, and a myriad of other characteristics. These are all the components that make up what it is to be human. And of course, one of the problems we've had is, in a lot of the human rights treaties, they've treated these characteristics as being monolithic. You're a woman, you're a child, you're a person with a disability. But these characteristics are interrelated. We can be all of these things and more, and the experiences that they may have may mean that their opportunities for success are, again, at zero because of those overlapping forms of discrimination, those overlapping barriers. So then the third principle of universal design is really made up of two components. It's accessibility and usability. We already went through usability. Remember, it's effective, efficient, and satisfying use of technology. Accessibility is similar. It refers to whether or not a person with a disability can use a piece of technology. So it's not just about everybody, it's about a specific characteristic here. And when we talk about issues related to accessibility and usability, when we talk about the barriers someone might experience, we're really looking at how those barriers emerge in the interaction between an individual, an activity that they want to engage in, and the environment that they're in. So for example, I'm using my iPad, a clicker, and this screen at the same time. And I didn't get a great night's sleep last night, so cognitively, I'm not processing the information at the right speed that I would normally be able to process it. So my experience using this technology in this setting is a very different one than if I were using this technology at home, or if I was using this technology at my classroom in Oslo. Yeah? So we can't really consider issues related to accessibility and usability only in isolation. We have to consider how they relate with one another and the environment that the user is in. And lastly, we get into the process issue. So the fourth principle of universal design is participatory processes. This means active participation of users in the design and development of technology. And again, this is kind of a radical idea. We should be bringing people in who aren't technology developers into the space where we create technology. In the 80s and the 70s, when we created technology, it was basically the tech developers did that, and they put it out to market, and then people used it. But now we're saying, let's bring those users into that process so that when we create the technology, it becomes more usable, more accessible to more people. And when I say active participation, what I don't mean is just, hey, you're a user, come on in, have a cookie, play with this piece of technology. I mean that they have to be involved in how the idea is created. They have to be involved throughout the design and development process. And of course, more specifically, this means involving socially disadvantaged users in the design and development of technology. If you want something to be accessible and usable for people with disabilities, you have to include them in the design and development of that technology. So in order to ensure universal design as an outcome, persons that experience barriers accessing and using technologies should be substantially involved throughout the design and development process. This approach explicitly recognizes the influence of how technology design and development shapes our everyday life. We constantly end up with these, not worst case, but bad case examples of technologies that are developed in isolation, put out to market, that create unintended effects. I think Facebook is a great example of that, right? We have this wonderful technology that connects millions of people, trillions of people actually, globally, but then we have so many concerns and issues related to privacy, safety, and security that happen in the design of Facebook. Just to call Facebook out. So by involving people from a variety of different backgrounds, from socially disadvantaged backgrounds in the design and development of technology, we can ensure that that technology is accessible and usable for them. Now here's where we get to the gap. Understanding the principles of universal design really enables us to approach child online safety in a whole new way. It enables us to approach interventions, tools, and the way we deal with child online safety in a new way. Yesterday in the plenary, several speakers discussed issues related to awareness raising and creating tools for parents and children and educators, tools that aim to ensure the safety and security of online technologies. While we can't wrap children in wool, I love that saying that Jonathan made, we can use universal design to ensure that these awareness raising and educational measures are effective, efficient, and satisfying for everyone. Using a universal design approach to child online safety is particularly relevant because research shows that sexual abuse of persons with intellectual or cognitive and psychosocial disabilities is highly prevalent. So these are kind of key stakeholders in the child online safety issues. And these same people can experience substantial barriers in using technology. For example, people with cognitive disabilities may experience barriers understanding rating systems. So if it's a child warning system about the content, they may not understand what that actually means, and they certainly may not understand the implications of that in their own lives. So I believe that universal design really has a great potential for improving our efforts in child online protection in two ways. Number one, it explicitly recognizes the experiences of parents and children with disabilities as key stakeholders in ensuring child online safety. And number two, it provides us a framework for ensuring that child online safety tools are usable and accessible for everyone. So let's go back through these principles, and I can hopefully articulate a little bit better. There we go. How they apply to child online safety. So, starting from the first principle, social equality. Universal design for child online safety is about designing online technologies that children can use on an equal basis with others. None of us are seeking to exclude children from online environments. We want children to take advantage of the knowledge, the information, and the communications potential that the internet and the World Wide Web provides. But as our point of departure, we have to consider how we can ensure that children can use those technologies as effectively, efficiently, and satisfyingly as anyone else. Second, human diversity. Universal design for child online safety means recognizing the unique social disadvantages that children face online. This is due not only to their age, but to the multidimensional and overlapping forms of social disadvantage that exist at the intersection of things like gender, disability, socioeconomic status, and other characteristics. Third, accessibility and usability. Universal design for child online safety means creating online technologies that are accessible for children with disabilities and usable for everyone. Many countries have laws that require technology companies to ensure access to technology for persons with disabilities. But these laws rarely take into consideration the relationship between accessibility and child online safety. And these are interconnected dimensions of social life. In addition, creating online technologies that are usable for all children means that any tools that we create for protecting children online are, again, less likely to be stigmatizing, less likely to be alienating, and less likely to feel patronizing to children. Finally, the fourth principle, participatory processes. Universal design for child online safety means ensuring the substantive participation of children, parents, teachers, and other key stakeholders in how we design and develop any of the tools that we use to protect children online. This includes involving children from socially disadvantaged backgrounds, including children with disabilities, in the whole process of designing technology. So, case studies in child online safety largely focus on behavior, not design. They do a great job of providing good practices related to reporting child sexual abuse and for blocking inappropriate content. There are a lot of amazing interventions that focus on rating systems and provide guidance and awareness raising for parents and children. but substantive guidance for technology developers to design technology in a way that takes into account the experiences of children and their safety online has yet to really emerge. Universal design is not a panacea. It's not going to solve all of the world's problems, and it's certainly not going to solve all the issues related to child online safety. But it does provide a new perspective, a new framework, and a new analytic lens for understanding how we approach the challenge of ensuring children's safety online. The way I see it is we have two opportunities for using universal design principles for ensuring child's online safety. First, stakeholders, like those of us gathered here today, must continue to work together to continue and explore and develop how and to what extent universal design principles can shape child online safety initiatives. And two, I wouldn't be a researcher if I didn't conclude a presentation by saying we need more data. We know far too little about the experiences of children, and in particular children with disabilities, interacting with online technologies. We need to work across sectors, industry, academia, government, and civil society to not only understand what are the barriers that these children experience using technologies, but to anticipate those barriers and remediate them before they ever exist. And I'm pleased to announce that myself and an organization in Norway, Organization for Children and Youth with Disabilities, have just applied for funding for 2 PhD positions focused exclusively on child online protection and universal design. Now, we don't have the funding yet, so we're keeping our fingers crossed. But I hope that next year I can come back at the 13th anniversary of this conference and bring those PhD students and bring not only this abstract theoretical knowledge, but then also have that grounded and rooted in empirical evidence that we can take forward in understanding how universal design can help us ensure the safety of children online. Let us please continue this conversation online. I'm at your service, so please add me on whatever social media channels you prefer. I'm easy to find. I'm the only one with that name.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.